But why wouldn't you want to find the right answer, Brad, instead of keep saying that the numbers are right? Because those numbers are so wrong.
Mr. Secretary, Mr. President, I mean, one of the things that we have been, Alex can talk about this, we've talked about it, and I don't know whether the information has been conveyed to your office, but I think what the President's saying and what we've been trying to do is to say, look, the court is not acting on our petition. They haven't even assigned a judge. But the people of Georgia and the people of America have a right to know the answers. And you have data and records that we don't have access to. And you keep telling us and making public statements that you've investigated this and, nothing to see here. But we don't know about that. All we know is what you tell us. What I don't understand is why it wouldn't be in everyone's best interest to try to get to the bottom, compare the numbers. If you say, but to try to be able to get to the truth, and that because we don't have any way of confirming what you're telling us. You tell us that you've had an investigation of the State Farm Arena. I don't have any report. I've never seen a report of investigation. I don't know what that is. I've been pretty involved in this. I don't know. And that's just one of 25 categories. And it doesn't even, and as the President said, we haven't even gotten into the Dominion issue. That's not part of our case. It's not part of, we just didn't feel as though we had any way to be able to develop.
No, we do have a way, but I don't want to get into it.
Exactly.
Because we found a way in other states, Slater, excuse me, but we don't need it because we're only down 11,000 votes, so we don't even need it.
Right.
I personally think they're corrupt as hell, but we don't need that because all we have to do, Slater, is find 11,000 plus votes. So we don't need that. I'm not looking to shake up the whole world. We won Georgia easily. We won it by hundreds of thousands of votes. But if you go by basic, simple numbers, we won it easily. So we're not giving Dominion a pass on the record.
No, right, exactly.
But we just don't, we don't need Dominion because we have so many other votes that we don't need to prove it any more than we already have.
Mr. President, Cleta, this is Kurt Hilbert, if I might interject here for a moment. Ryan, I would like to suggest that just 4 categories that have already been mentioned by the President that have actually hard numbers of 24,149 votes that were counted illegally. That in and of itself is sufficient to change the results or place the outcome in doubt. We would like to just sit down with your office, and we can do it through purposes of compromise and settlement just like this phone call, just to deal with that limited category of votes. And if you are able to establish that our numbers are not accurate, then fine. However, we believe that they are accurate. We've had now 3 to 4 separate experts look at these numbers. These numbers are based upon the USPS.
And certified accountants looked at them.
Correct. And this is just based on USPS data and your own Secretary of State data. So that's what we would entreat and ask you to do, to sit down with us in a compromise and settlement proceeding and actually go through the registered voter IDs and the registrations. And if you can convince us that that 24,149 is inaccurate, then fine. But we tend to believe that that is, obviously more than 11,779. That's sufficient to change the result entirely in and of itself. So what would you say to that, Mr. Germany?
Kurt, I'm happy to, I'll get with our lawyers and we'll set that up. That number is not accurate, and I think we can show you, for all the ones we've looked at, why it's not. And so if that would be helpful, I'm happy to get with our lawyers and set that up with you guys.
Well, let me ask you, Kurt. Kurt, you think that is an accurate number? That was based on the information given to you by the Secretary of State's Department, right?
That is correct. That information is the minimum, most conservative data based upon the USPS data and the Secretary of State's office data that has been made publicly available. We do not have the internal numbers from the Secretary of State, yet we have asked for it 6 times. I've sent a letter over to Mr. Anulowicz several times requesting this information, and it's been rebuffed every single time. So it stands to reason that if the information is not forthcoming, there's something to hide. That's the problem that we have.
Well, that's not the case. There are things that you guys are entitled to get, and there's things that under law we are not allowed to give out.
Well, you have to. Well, under law, you're not allowed to give faulty election results, okay? You're not allowed to do that, and that's what you've done. This is a faulty election result. And honestly, this should go very fast. You should meet tomorrow because you have a big election coming up, and because of what you've done to the president, you know, the people of Georgia know that this was a scam. And because of what you've done to the president, a lot of people aren't going out to vote. And a lot of Republicans are going to vote negative because they hate what you did to the president. Okay? They hate it. And they're going to vote. And if you would be respected, if this thing could be straightened out before the election. You have a big election coming up on Tuesday. And therefore, I think that it really is important that you meet tomorrow and work out on these numbers. Because I know, Brad, that if you think we're right, I think you're going to say, and I'm not looking to blame anybody. I'm just saying that, under new counts and under new views of the election results, we won the election. It's all, it's very simple. We won the election. As the governor of major states and the surrounding states said, there is no way you lost Georgia. As the Georgia politicians say, there is no way you lost Georgia. Everyone knows I won it by hundreds of thousands of votes. But I'll tell you, it's going to have a big impact on Tuesday if you guys don't get this thing straightened out fast.
Well, Mr. President, this is Mark. Let me just, it sounds like we've got two different sides agreeing that we can look at those areas, and I assume that we can do that within the next 24 to 48 hours to go ahead and get that reconciled so that we can look at the two claims and making sure that we get the access to the Secretary of State's data to either validate or invalidate the claims that have been made. Is that correct?
So that's not what I said. I'm happy to sit down with, or have our lawyers sit down with Kurt and the lawyers on that side and explain to him, hey, here's, based on what we've looked at so far, here's how we know this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. And
so what you're saying, Ryan, hold on, let me make sure. So what you're saying is you really don't want to give access to the data. You just want to make another case on why the lawsuit is wrong?
I don't think we can give access to data that's protected by law. But we can sit down with them and say,
but
hey,
you're allowed to have a phony election? You're allowed to have a phony election, right?
No, sir.
When are you going to do the signature counts on, when are you going to do signature verification on Fulton County? Which you said you were going to do, and now all of a sudden you're not doing it. When are you doing that?
We are going to do that. We've announced.
To get to this issue of the personal information and privacy issue, is it possible that the Secretary of State could deputize the lawyers for the president so that we could access that information, that private information, without you having any kind of violation?
Well, I don't want to know who it is. You guys can do it very confidentially. You can sign a confidentiality agreement. That's okay. I don't need to know names.
All right,
but we got the information on this stuff that we're talking about. We got all that information from the Secretary of State.
Yeah, so let me recommend, Ryan, if you and Kurt will get together, when we get off of this phone call, if you could get together and work out a plan to address some of what we've got with your attorneys, where we can actually look at the data. For example, Mr. Secretary, I can tell you, you said there was only 2 dead people that would vote. I can promise you there are more than that, and that may be what your investigation shows, but I can promise you there are more than that. But at the same time, I think it's important that we go ahead and move expeditiously to try to do this and resolve it as quickly as we possibly can. And if that's the good next step, hopefully we can finish this phone call and go ahead and agree that the two of you will get together immediately.
Well, why don't my lawyers show you where you got the information? It'll show the Secretary of State, and you don't even have to look at any names. We don't want names. We don't care. But we got that information from you. So look, can you get together tomorrow? And Brad, we just want the truth. It's simple. And everyone's going to look very good if the truth comes out. It's okay. It take a little while, but let the truth come out. And the real truth is I won by 400,000 votes, at least. That's the real truth. But we don't need 400,000 votes. We need less than 2,000 votes. And are you guys able to meet tomorrow, Ryan?
I'll get with Chris, the lawyer who's representing us in the case, and see when he can get together with Kurt.
All right.
Ryan will be in touch with the other attorney on this call, Mr. Meadows. Thank you, President Trump, for your time.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
President.